The day after the night before, Liverpool rather dramatically lost 7-2 at Villa Park. I'm sure Steve and Jamie have both got a lot to say about it. So, first of all, Steve, what happened last night?
This is a 20-minute pod, remember, so there's plenty to get through to talk about that. I'll share this with Jamie because there's a lot of meat on the bone here, and I'm going to start by saying I think right from the off there was zero confidence in the goalkeeper. We set up really deep. There was an edginess about the back four you don't see before very often. The first goal confounded that fear, made it even worse. And then as Klopp says, I think we just lost the plot. We didn't press. The midfield three had no intensity. What Gomez and Trent were doing, when you're under pressure, you don't go out of position. You sit back in your positions. You keep your right back alongside you, and you pull Naby Keita in front. Okay, we know Naby Keita isn't a combative midfielder who's going to put in tackles, but you're still pulling back and you're sitting in front of the two right side of the defence, and you weather the storm. The Villa came out with very clear instructions to start fast, start well, and start with confidence. They'd won 3 games in a row. Why wouldn't they? I just thought we lost the plot. We didn't counter their. You got to earn the right to play football. It's very cliched, but it's very true. We didn't earn any right to play any football yesterday. We were second best all over the pitch. So I'll leave my little bit there and then pass it over to Jamie because I don't want to cover everything, and it's going to be the main topic, obviously.
Yeah, so essentially, there are so many areas we could sort of point out. We were as weak on the right side of defence as we were threatening on the left flank. Again, to reiterate Steve's point, it looked as though the defence had absolutely no confidence in what was going on behind them. You could see Adrian, obviously, when the ball comes to his feet, he's panicking. He's very jittery with the ball at his feet. So I just think Villa came out of the blocks quickly, and I think we were shell-shocked. Obviously, we went down early doors. The concern again with the second goal, again touching on your point, Steve, with if you see Trent and Gomez, they were so close in position. We were just opened up like a can of worms down that side, mate, and yeah, it was like parting of the Red Sea. Every time they went forward, it seemed like our centre backs were almost covering the full-back positions, and it was just given a massive valley for them just to run through each time. Very concerning.
Do you think this is a new thing, or do you think this has been coming, Jamie?
In all honesty, mate, I think there's we've sort of advertised the vulnerabilities over the last few months, shall we say? It was completely exposed. It was completely exposed last night. It's really concerning. Obviously, we've got a notoriously high line. I think Alisson is an integral part of that tactic. Adrian himself, I don't know if you noticed, but he likes to stay within his box predominantly. So there was just oceans and oceans of space for them to move into and hurt us. And we were lucky, mate. It wouldn't have been beyond fair for them to have got 9 last night, mate. It was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. But yeah, I think it's taken for something as drastic as this to happen for us to maybe have a look and see what we need to do about it.
Same with you, Steve. Was you shocked by this, or did you see this coming, Steve?
Well, obviously I'm shocked by the scoreline. I've been saying for months that part of Gomez's development is his ability to communicate. I don't see him talk. I don't see him talk to Trent and tell Trent where to be and when to be there. I think Henderson does that for the pair of them. So having Henderson out of the team and having Naby Keita playing on that side, because Gini can only play on the left, being so predominantly left-footed, I think we lacked any communication. I don't see Fabinho as a great talker in the centre of the park either. I probably would have preferred, and it's easy to say it in hindsight, I think it would have been better to have played Milner in a position Keita played. They set up with McGinn, and Barkley, who wanted the ball and wanted to get at us. Now, unless you centre midfielders are at it, and from defensively and intensively wise, yesterday we weren't. Ross Barkley looked $1 million yesterday. Ross Barkley can't get a game at Chelsea, and he looked $1 million. He's running the show. Absolutely, I thought he played really well, and I'm not worried about saying that. He did. He played very well. We know what he's got in his locker. He revelled in the freedom he had. He revelled in the opportunities to run into space. He wasn't tracked particularly well when he had the ball, and because of the frailties on our right, they attack down the left, and you cannot give a player of Jack Grealish's ability that time with nobody closing him down. Even if you go and stand in front on his right foot and stand in front of him, he's got to shift the ball rather than look to open up his body and use it. So similar to what Jamie said, we've known our weaknesses. Ironically enough, people started to look at Liverpool's right-hand side as a defensive weakness as long ago as when Louis van Gaal was manager of Man United, and we went to Old Trafford, and every ball they played was inside to out, directed at Fellaini, who stood on our right back, and everything came off him and went inside. Ever since that, that's been an issue for me. That's been an issue, and Matip played that day, so it's a concern for me. Can't put too big a price on how much of a miss Henderson is. I will never ever have anything negative to say about that guy. Yes, he plays the ball sideways sometimes and sometimes backwards. What he gives to the team in terms of organising the shape and leading by his enthusiasm and the sheer work he does, and the fact he won't accept anything better than 100% from anybody else. Guy's got to play, got to get him back in the team as soon as possible. So 7-2 is a shocker, but we've given lots of opportunities down our right-hand side of our defence in the last few months.
So we've got the international break now. Some people are saying it's a good thing. I think it's a bad thing because I think we need all our players at Melwood together. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen. What has Klopp got to do now to sort that out? Jamie?
That's $1 million question, mate. It's a tough one. I'm not entirely sure any of us are qualified to give an answer of any real sort of value. We can only offer opinion. Obviously, the confidence is going to take in a bit of a hiding last night. But on the flip side, it's a little reminder that they're not infallible. You know, they're only human. This can happen. So it might be just the shot in the arm that they need, mate, just to regain a little bit of that focus. Because, you know, you can get a bit of the sort of big boy mentality. We're not accustomed to losing games, certainly not in that manner. We're not accustomed to losing games full stop. So, it's just much of the same, mate. Get them back, get them doing what they do best, and just have some really, really good sessions. I'm not a fan of the international window, mate. International break. I feel personally that needs to get in the bin. I think time is much better served back at Melwood, especially in light of what's going on with the COVID situation and what have you. But it is what it is, mate. And essentially, it's going back, doing what they do, get back to the basics, mate, and just get their minds back on the game.
Same question to you, Steve. What do you think happens now? What do you think Klopp does now?
He won't panic because it's not in his nature. He was never going to come on telly last night and publicly criticise his players. He's not that man. He takes the shots for the players and he deals with things behind closed doors at Melwood. It would be better to be at Melwood. It'd be better to make them sit and watch the video and show them where that player ran off that player and that player ran off that player and where was the press there and where was the intensity there. And Bobby, why were you there? And Minamino, when you came on, why were you there? Feature for me was both those guys at times was so deep trying to help out in the midfield. We just lost our way. I think one of the things he's got to do is give some thought to who plays in goal. I'm seeing people saying that Kelleher is miles off the pace in terms of being ready. Well, if he's miles off Adrian, then there's probably a case to say he's never going to be good enough to play. What does he do? We have to find a way where we can use our high back line. We find a keeper who's more comfortable with his feet. That's the pressing thing. Sort out the defensive shape. Whether we had dropped the high line we're not playing with Alisson. If we dispense with the high line because we're playing with Adrian, we'll invite teams onto us and we'll invite trouble. What works for us is we were pushing so far up the field, all of the football to get out and to play in their half was all done in the opposition's half. So I don't suppose there'll be any knee-jerk reactions. He's not that type of man. I think he'll see it as a one-off. He'll remind the players when he gets to spend time with them of their duties in what we look to do. But more importantly, he'll remind them that's not good enough, because it isn't. And Andy Robertson came out and said so at the end. But, we're all hurting at the moment. The players have to be hurting too. That's arguably the worst game I've ever watched as a football fan, as a Liverpool fan. Very, very hard, and I'm still not over it now. But he's got to get a grip of the back line, and if we're going to play with Adrian, we're going to have to dispense with this high line, because Jamie quite rightly pointed out, he likes to stand in his 6-yard box. You can't have a sweeper keeper who will not come out and sweep. Adrian won a header against Bournemouth about 18 months ago on the edge of the box. Never seen anybody get that high for a header before in my life. Just gives you something completely different. So for me, it's, if we haven't won it for 6 weeks, we have to work hard to cut out what happened last night. That will be his focus. But international break, as silly as it is, because of COVID, as Jamie said, shouldn't be taking place at the moment. It really shouldn't.
So put yourself in Adrian's head right now. What is that guy thinking now, Steve?
I don't know, because he's come on social media and he said we'll come back stronger. And you've got foolish fans asking for apologies. Players don't have to give us apologies. They give us joy. They give us major trophies in the last 2 years. I think he's got it is what it is attitude to it, and the next game he'll try and put it right. But I think he's playing with so many nerves. I don't think when he's out there, he wants to be there. It's difficult. I've said it before. I've said it to you guys before. When you're a reserve goalkeeper and you don't play very often, your game goes to rack and ruin. You don't have the confidence of playing every week. You don't have the confidence of playing with a back four and commanding that back four. He doesn't speak to them at all. You don't have the ability to take control of your box, because standing in a 6-yard box, you can't take control of your box. Difficult to say what is going to his mind at the moment. As I say, I think he's got it is what it is attitude. I suspect he's remorseful for his mistake. Who wouldn't be? But he's not coming out fighting, is he? He's coming out with sort of middle of the road statements. Difficult to say. For me, there's a big question mark over whether he plays in the rest of Alisson's absence. I would probably take a punt with the young lad, Kelleher.
Same question to you, Steve. What do you think is going through Adrian's head right now? Jamie?
He's coming out on social media. He's given us sort of the generic sort of by the book comments. The thing is, again, Steve touched upon it. He's clearly lacking in confidence. I said something similar last time we spoke about Origi. He goes in there, and for me, he smacks to somebody who he almost doesn't believe he's good enough to command the number one spot. And for me, it shows in his performance. He needs to get back. He needs to take ownership of the mistakes. And he needs to go back. He needs to work with the coaching team, mate, and he needs to sort this out. We can't afford 4, 6, 8 weeks of that, because the lack of confidence is going to just flood throughout the pitch, mate, and it's going to be hugely detrimental. I'm not saying he's wholeheartedly entirely responsible for what happened last night, but that mistake was kind of the catalyst of what happened moving on. I mean, he made a good stop, a one-on-one stop with Watkins later on in the game, but even positionally, there are question marks. He's got to get, again, I keep saying it, he's got to get back to basics, mate. He's got to it's down to the coaches, mate. Essentially, they're going to have to pull something out of the bag with him. But again, like Steve, I will be surprised if he stays in the position for the entirety of Alisson's absence, mate. Be it Kelleher. Be interested to see what Mel would think of Pitaluga. But if they've been brought in, mate, obviously they've been considered good enough to challenge. So it would be interesting to see how it develops over the coming weeks.
You both touched on it there.
5 minutes, guys. 5 minutes.
Okay. So you both touched on it there. So very quickly, what is your reaction to Liverpool fans on social media from last night towards some of our players?
Shall I jump in there quick?
Yeah.
To be honest, mate, it's silly. Knowing, as I'm sure you do, knowing professional footballers, mate, it will be hurting them as much, if not more, than it hurts us as supporters. They're incredibly proud of their profession, mate. So they'll be hurt by that. For me, it's a nonsense to be going out there demanding apologies from the club or individual players for that performance. These things can happen, mate. And as a supporter, as a fan, we shouldn't be demanding apologies. What we should be wanting is a reaction. That's what we need. We need a reaction. That's the true sign of champions, mate, is how you react. We all go through sort of choppy waters, mate, but we just got to get our heads down and push through it. We know we're a great side. And that horrific, by the way, result that we've just had doesn't change that. It was an absolute oddity. It's not acceptable by any stretch of the imagination, but they'll be feeling it, they'll be hurting, and they'll be looking to put that right.
Same question to you, Steve.
I get the frustration, I get the disappointment. I'm not sure I get the level of anger. It's a one-off, it's a flash in the pan, it's an oddity, as Jamie said. I think there's lessons to be learned from the football club in terms of what happened on the pitch, from the fans about what happens on social media. You'd mentioned Adrian. Adrian's quite active on social media. You can't tell me he doesn't see the things that are said. There were 9,000 comments on his post on Twitter last night. For the most part, it's supportive, but there were some proper vile ones in there that really have no place in football. We, for years, have been called the club where the fans know about football, the knowledgeable fans who applaud people off the pitch at the end of the game when they play well. And we've done it myself. That's not knowledge. That's not being clever. That's not being smart. That's not showing all of the good things about Liverpool Football Club. That's showing the vile side of society, unfortunately, and it rears its ugly head too often. It's not necessary. It's not. If you've got bad feelings, keep them to yourself and let the team sort out how you feel in your head by going and beating Everton in the derby. Doesn't serve anybody any purpose, let alone yourself, to go on there and put the things that I've seen on Twitter and the like. I've avoided Liverpool Football Club's Facebook page because apparently that was at a completely different level to anything else in terms of toxicity and nastiness. They're not real fans, mate. They're not. They can't be, because I love my club, whether they win 7-2 or lose 7-2, mate.
And you know what, Steve? I think that's a good point to finish on there. Hopefully next time, when we're reporting after the Merseyside derby, it'll be a much happier podcast. So you happy to leave things there, boys?
Yeah, sounds
grand.
All right, I'll get this across. I'm going to stop recording.